a lot of the time when we think about these changes, we immediately go to legal liability being the ultimate risk, and it's a very real risk, and tribunals will certainly be looking at whether employers can demonstrate that they've taken all reasonable steps, and there is that potential for compensation uplifts and third-party harassment claims. But in reality, for a lot of organisations, the wider consequences can be as much or even more so damaging for them. And the first one I want to talk about is cultural. So employees more and more now are constantly assessing whether an organisation's stated values, which are in the handbook, they're part of the induction process, do their actions match those values? And that's constantly something that we come back to. When concerns are handled poorly, obviously trust erodes very, very quickly. People stop reporting issues, managers can become quite reluctant to intervene, and employees can assume that reporting an incident or having a difficult conversation won't lead to meaningful action. And once that trust is lost, it's very difficult to build back up again. There's also a significant talent risk. In particular, we're in a multi-generational workforce, and the younger generations in particular do place a lot of emphasis on expecting employers to take visible action on inclusion and safety and dignity at work, rightly so. So where an organisation is perceived to tolerate poor behaviour, retention can become a lot more challenging, and employees do vote with their feet, and we see this. And then there's the reputational risk. So this is a really big one. In today's environment and access to social media, workplace issues do often extend far beyond the internal walls and internal investigations. Concerns do reach online platforms, industry networks, review platforms, professional communities very, very quickly. And for many of the organisations that we support, reputation is one of the most valuable commercial assets. So, client-facing businesses do trade on trust and, brand credibility. So when workplace issues can become public, which they do, it can affect recruitment, it can affect client relationships, investor confidence. It really is all consuming. And as I say, there's a client risk there as well. So increasingly, businesses are being asked by their clients, their suppliers, their procurement teams, how can you demonstrate your commitment to a safe and inclusive working environment? And failure to be able to do that can absolutely influence the partnership, opportunities. So ultimately here, the risk is not just a tribunal risk. It is about, a cultural risk and an environment where people feel no longer safe to speak up, where leaders lose their credibility, and where culture really starts to weaken as a result of that. The organisations and the businesses that will be strongest under this legislation, they won't be the ones with the longest policies. They're going to be the ones where they can demonstrate genuine prevention, visible leadership accountability, and where they've encouraged a strong speak up culture, and they have that clear commitment to dignity at work. And that is what's going to distinguish compliance from best practice.